everybody. Welcome to another Ride in Rodrigo. And Rodrigo is not here. He is AWOL, but I hope he'll be back soon because I don't think I can do the show without him. Don't let him know. Don't tell him that. He doesn't need to know he's that necessary. Because we actually have better than Rodrigo. We have Nicole with us today, and we're actually fulfilling a lifelong dream of Nicole's because we are live right now. We're live on Saturday night. So you could even say that this is a Saturday Night Live special for Nicole, which has been your lifelong dream, right?
Yeah, I always said that I either want to be a musical guest or a guest writer for SNL. So here we go.
It's Saturday night. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. And so we're live all around mostly just Canby with my parents. But I'm sure somebody out there...
Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Coffin!
Exactly, yes. And a quick update for you, Nicole, because you are Nicole, friend of the show. You were here back in August, and you've moved since then, right? You have a new house?
I'm in the process of moving. Yeah, so we bought a house, and we are packing up the house that we currently have so we can go into the new house. But the new house is still under construction. It's a new construction. So, yeah, I'm officially bougie now. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
and
so we used to be the Eckermans of Seattle. We are now the Eckermans of Maple Valley.
Wow. I looked on the map, and it's hella south. Where are you going so far south for? What's the deal?
Because there's only 20,000 people in the town, and the pandemic has taught me that I'm actually secretly an introvert that's been masquerading as an extrovert my whole life.
Well,
I really just want a bigger piece of property so I can have more dogs. That's part of it as well too. And I want my son to be a feral forest child. So this is ticking all the boxes for that.
Well, it was good of you to be so honest.
Yeah. Well, no, and seriously too, it's getting out of Seattle is a big part of it. Seattle has changed a lot since I moved here. And this past year in particular has been pretty rough. Our house was tear gassed by Seattle PD when there was the Capitol Hill occupied protest or autonomous zone, Chopper Chaz, whichever you want to call it, as part of the George Floyd uprising across the country. The Seattle Police Department used enough tear gas to clear 7 football fields in a 2-block radius of the most densely populated neighborhood in Seattle. And it's also the gay neighborhood, and it was the first day of Pride Month, so that was fun. But the wind started blowing, and it got into our house, and because we're not too far away from there, and between that and the shootings in the area, it's just time to go. It's time to go. The cities are, it's not really great up here right now. So, yeah.
Well, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess that's
dogs are a lot more fun story, so we're gonna go with that.
Yes.
I guess that's a good enough segue to what we're going to talk about today. And the big story today is all about politics because just this week we're celebrating. Let's celebrate President Biden's first 100 days in office. So that's pretty cool. But we'll get more into specific Biden stuff in a minute because first I want to ask you, how's the COVID doing in Seattle? How's COVID doing in the United States? Are you guys vaccinated yet, or what's your deal?
Yeah, my husband and I are both vaccinated. And we got vaccinated really early because of what he does for work. Nathan is a software engineer, but he's a software engineer at a medical center, and he and his team basically built the entire tech infrastructure for the vaccine rollout for the health system that he works for. And they saw something, they identified a problem pretty early on. And that was the Pfizer vaccine that the hospital was using. They have to defrost it 2 days in advance. And when people missed their appointment, there was vaccines that were basically going down the drain. And his team was like, we got to find a way to stop the waste because there's people that are dying. We need to get these jabs into people as quickly as possible. So his team was dog fooding a system where people that live like close to the medical center, that if they were like, hey, we have 10 doses that have to be used in the next hour, can you get here? Like people could go and like get it. So I was part of that system when they were testing it. And so I got to get vaccinated. I was pretty lucky. So he got vaccinated because he's an essential worker with the hospital. And then I got vaccinated as they were making sure that doses weren't going to waste. Because if it didn't go into my arm, it was going to go down the drain.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Good.
Yeah, pretty lucky. But even with that, you know, we still, because there's the risk of variants going around, and there's always, like, anytime you get a vaccine, it's never 100% effective. It's like birth control. So you always have to still be careful. And so we're still like, you know, I've been out to happy hour once with a friend in a place where we were unmasked, but we were outside and we still sat apart from each other. We still double mask when we go into the grocery store. We're still not allowing our son to go into the grocery store. And I still haven't gone into the office. I'm still working from home because we just don't feel like there's enough control on this yet, and there's still not enough that's known about the variants. So, but there's been a problem with getting people vaccinated up here. So there is really a divide still of people that have been able to get the vaccine and people that are unable to get vaccinated. And then you have the dumbass anti-vaxxers in all of that as well.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, is the problem getting people vaccinated now about the number of vaccines, or is it that people aren't willing to get vaccinated? What's the problem with vaccination now in your area?
It's a couple different things. So there was a lot of folks that were planning on getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And that one was cool because it's a single dose. All the other, like the Pfizer, the Moderna, those you have to get 2 doses, which makes it a little bit more difficult because especially with vulnerable populations, people can be harder to track. People can be harder to like follow up on. If you are working multiple jobs, it can be difficult to keep your appointment to get that second jab. And if you miss it, like getting that follow-up can be really difficult. So getting the second vaccination has been challenging for people for a number of reasons. The Johnson & Johnson was cool because it's the one jab, but then they found out that it was causing like blood clots. So they put an emergency pause on it, and all of these doses that had come to Seattle basically got tossed, is what it seems like. No one, like, we haven't really found out what happened to the doses, what happened to the stockpile once they put a hold on it, because those vaccines have a pretty short expiration date on them. So folks are having to get rescheduled and figure it out. Luckily, they have said that, they're going to start allowing folks to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine again, but they have to do it with like a warning label. So that's part of it, but it is also just like trying to find the appointments, because we have all this vaccine that is coming into the area, but finding the vaccination and getting an appointment can be really difficult. There was a series of people that went to one medical center to get the vaccine, and the medical center itself didn't manage it well. And so you basically have to be like, okay, for every one appointment, for every one person, you need 2 doses. And they were just like, we have, 5,000 doses, let's schedule 5,000 people. And then when it came time for those folks to get their second dose, the hospital was like, oh crap, we don't have it. So then folks were scrambling around to other places to try to get it. People were running out of the vaccine. So it's been really difficult. It's even though, in Seattle, we have the 2 companies that are probably the international masters of supply chain management. You have Starbucks and you have Amazon that are headquartered here. And they have been partnering with some of the medical centers to try to get a more concise flow and a better flow of this. But even with that, it's like the freaking Hunger Games trying to get an appointment and get in there. Like my mother-in-law, even though she's been qualified for a long time, still can't find an appointment. My father-in-law was only able to get it through the VA. I know folks that are exceptionally high risk that they still can't get the vaccine. And then there's other people who are in their mid-20s and were able to get it, and it wasn't a big deal. So it really just depends. It's difficult. It's really difficult.
And how do you qualify? Here in Brazil, it's by age. So right now we're around 60. They're vaccinating
63.
Year olds, right? How do they qualify in the US?
Yeah, so that's a great question. They're doing it partially. It changes state by state, which is also one of the things that makes it difficult. So if you're like in Oklahoma, it's different than how they're doing it here in Washington. But the way that we were phasing it was age, but before age, it was essential workers. So healthcare workers like my husband, even though he's not a clinician, because he is like, if he got sick, if he went down, they would be in a world of hurt because his team, like I said, was managing the entire tech rollout of the vaccine and the scheduling system. So you had essential workers, and then it went to people with comorbidity, like if you had something that made you exceptionally vulnerable, plus folks over a certain age, and then it went to a slightly younger age and then expanded the comorbidity. And now it's anyone 16 and over can get the vaccination. But even with that, we still have cases surging. Even though we've had more and more vaccines get out into the community, we're still getting into the fourth wave. So we have the state is divided up into different regions by counties, and the counties are like in various phases based on like you can have 25% occupancy or 50% occupancy or 10% occupancy. So a lot of places are at risk of rolling back. Like we've all been really excited about being in that third phase because like at the museum that I work at, that means we can have 50% of people, 50% of capacity in our galleries, but we're on the brink of having that rolled back because cases are surging even as the vaccine is getting out there. Because and you see this a lot where people are like, oh, I have the vaccine so I don't have to wear a mask, but those around you don't have the vaccine and you still might be spreading it because we don't really know. We know that it doesn't, like, you won't get a super bad case, but we don't know if you can still be a carrier.
Yeah, I was watching, I think it was a Fauci interview where he said that even if you have the vaccine, you shouldn't, like, travel. You shouldn't do things yet because you're going to be creating new variants, he said. Because you'll be, like if my parents, for example, have tickets to come to Brazil in October, but I just told them this week, like, probably that's not going to happen, because even though you guys are vaccinated, luckily they got vaccinated, I think, last month, so that's cool. Nice. Good for them. You can't come to Brazil because people here are not vaccinated, and we're not going to be by then. Like, Rodrigo, you said that you looked at the website for our age. How long is it going to be until we vaccinated?
Mine is 8 months and yours is 10.
Jeez.
So in October we're not going to have vaccines, and if they come here, then they're going to be mixing the vaccine and the American variant and the Brazilian variant all together, and probably creating some new mutant super variant.
You like what's happening in India right now?
Like what's happening in India right now.
I have a question to Nicole. How do you, like here in Brazil, it's free. You have to wait for them, and you have to register on the website. And there's been fight over whether they'll get it privatized or not. They'll have companies buy it and sell it. How does it work in America?
Well, as you know, we have such a fantastic healthcare system up here. I'm lucky that I have insurance, and so it asked for my health insurance information when I registered. What's interesting is I haven't received my co-payment bill from my insurance yet, so I still don't know what I'm going to have to pay out of pocket for the vaccine. My husband got it for free because he's a healthcare worker, and the hospital that he works at is self-insured. There are a lot of places that it's looking like it'll potentially be free, but we don't really know. We don't know how it's going to process through our insurance. The museum that I work at, this year we actually changed health insurance plans because the policy that we had was dropping some really important reproductive coverage for women. And so I was like, we need to find a different policy. That's not okay. That's untenable for us to continue offering that. And so that was one of the big questions was, how is this policy going to charge people for the COVID vaccine? Because I know with the flu shot, I went to the wrong clinic to get a flu shot during the flu shot season. And instead of having it be covered by my insurance, even though it's the same vaccine, it was just at a different pharmacy. It ended up costing me like $200 to get a flu vaccine. Just because, and if I had gone literally across the street, it would have been free. I just misread the website. So that's super fun. But yeah, so no, you do have to register through a website, and there's a couple things. There's one through the state that's like Find Your Phase that notifies you when you're eligible for it. And then you also have to register with the medical center so you can schedule your appointment. And then if you're not going to a medical center and you're getting it through the county, then you also have to register through county public health. So it's a really convoluted system. And that's, I think, where one of the challenges is coming for a lot of folks. Like, if English isn't your first language, it's really difficult to navigate. If you are not super savvy with technology, it's really difficult to navigate. So people are really struggling with it.
I think I could be wrong, but I think I saw somebody high up in the Biden administration say, "Do not pay for the vaccine." I think I saw them say, "Do not pay, because you shouldn't be paying for this vaccine." Have you heard anything about that?
I mean, that's entirely possible. Things have been changing so quickly since the Biden administration took over. There's so many things of, like, I gotta say, when the Biden administration released their COVID response plan, it was so invigorating to see that happen, but also so frustrating at the same time, because you're like, these are basic things. This shouldn't be rocket science. This is a basic, like, ultra basic plan that would have saved thousands of lives, because it was at that point literally the bare minimum of what we should have been doing. And we're like, if this had just happened months ago, where would we be? How many more people would still be around dinner tables with their families if we had just done this a little bit earlier? Because there was nothing groundbreaking in it. So it's entirely possible that they've gotten it so you don't have to pay for it. But I don't know, because with the American health system, you never know what you're going to have to pay for and what your copay is going to be, and if you're going to get a surprise bill at the end of it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Biden and the new president, I remember that you're pretty liberal, you're pretty left, and I told myself to go back and watch the episode that we did with you in August to try to get a read on what your feelings were before the election so that we could talk about it now, but then I didn't. But that said, how do you feel about President Biden now? Do you feel like you've been disappointed? Do you feel super excited? What's your general read on Biden so far?
I have to say, pleasantly underwhelmed.
What?
Yes, that face is right. So no, it's been like, I feel like I have spent the past 4 years waking up every day and going to, like, my news feed to be like, oh God, what's going on now? What is the newest level of hell that we have uncovered? So it's nice to get out of that. Like, it's very pleasant to get out of that and to get back to, like, just standard disappointment. Just standard disappointment of, oh, so you said that you were going to, within your first 100 days forgive student loan debt, and that still hasn't happened? As opposed to, oh, you're actively trying to separate children from their families. Like, the difference is so vast. It's really nice to just be underwhelmed, as opposed to damage report every single day, every second, doom scrolling on Facebook and constantly feeling like you are in suspended animation of a toxic hell pit. Just to put it bluntly.
Twilight. What's the name of that show? Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Twilight Zone.
It seemed like a Twilight Zone episode, a never-ending Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, it just kept being like, I'm not sure if you guys have seen, I'm not sure if you're able to get the show Veep down there. It's on HBO.
Yeah.
I love that show, and I found out, like, I was so sad when they decided that they were going to cancel it, and I thought the reason of it was so funny. They were like, we just can't, like, reality is too crazy. Like, our whole shtick was trying to stay ahead of reality and just, like, go to the more extreme, to the more insane, to the more, like, there's no way this could ever happen. But now their show was no longer reading as a farce, but reading as a potential, like, this is a very real possibility of things that could happen now. So they're like, we couldn't do it anymore. Which I love that. I think that that's so, like, tragic, but really funny at the same time. But yeah, so there's things that I really want to see the administration do that haven't happened yet. There's things that they should have done right away, that they only did it when they were pressured, like with the changes in immigration, particularly with refugee statuses. So the Biden administration had been campaigning on the fact that they were going to lift the refugee cap again, and the fact that they were going to streamline the refugee system again, because the United States had been, just kind of world leaders in terms of refugees that we were allowing into the country. And the Trump administration just slashed that so down. And we're talking about people that are fleeing religious persecution, are fleeing persecution because they are LGBTQ. We're talking about women trying to get out of their countries so their girls can go to school and not have acid thrown in their face by trying to get an education, or because they want to learn how to read. And the fact that those people weren't being allowed in was heartbreaking. And the way that system had been decimated, like that is what our country is. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to be here for. We're a land of immigrants. And so it was disappointing to see that it took the Biden administration so long to start lifting those caps. But also, I got to give a lot of credit to the media in this, to the news media, because if you look at the press briefings, which is fantastic to see that there's actually press briefings happening on a regular basis, again, at the White House, they're really holding their feet to the fire on these things that they said that they were going to do. And I feel like there's been this shift in the country of we see this, we're bearing witness to this, and we are coming out of this fever dream that we've had over the past 4 years, and it is now on us. Like, if we can come together and flip the state of Georgia, like, we can do a lot of things, but it takes the collective coming together and working to benefit. We can no longer do what happened like in the women's suffrage movement, where white women were like, yes, we got the right to vote, or we got the right to vote, we're so great, forget about you ladies of color, we don't need you anymore. Like, there's been this realization that we can't do that anymore. We have got to, like, when you get a step up, you have to put a hand out to lift someone up with you. And so there is this sense of accountability for those that are around you now that I don't feel has been there in the same way. And it's like people are bearing witness to this moment in a different way than we have in the past. So I think that's like, really, I feel like that's the best thing that came out of the Biden administration, is this kind of collective change in the community.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, for me, the moment that Trump left and Biden entered, I stopped watching. I disengaged. I was like, nope, I'm done. That was a fun roller coaster, man, but I'm getting off. I need to go take a nap. And so I like see the news, and it's like COVID exists still, and President Biden said something, and I'm like, cool. That's the end of my engagement with the news. So I know that they spent a lot of money, and we're going to talk about that specifically in a second. But other than all of the money that got spent, what are some things that the administration has done that are important? Catch me up. Tell me, what did I miss in the first 100 days?
In the first 100 days, well,
you said about this refugee thing, and that's nice. But what else happened?
So this was part of the stimulus package, and it is a money thing, but it's so crazy flippin' important. And that is creating basically a guaranteed wage for working families, particularly for families where their children are living in poverty. So the part of the stimulus thing is, backing up, in the American tax system, there is this thing called the child care tax credit, or the dependent credit. So there's two different tax credits that exist. There's one that you get a credit for having a dependent, which is like a credit against the taxes that you owe. And then you also get like a credit for money that you have to spend in childcare, because we have insanely expensive childcare costs. Like, when my son was an infant, before we had our nanny, we started looking into, because my husband and I both have to work, we started looking into putting him in daycare. And for 1 month of daycare, it would have cost over $3,000 a month for him to be in daycare, which is just such a bananas amount of money. Like, the fact that it was cheaper for us to have a nanny is insane to me. But for a lot of families, they're really just working so they can maintain healthcare benefits, but their paycheck, at least one person's paycheck, is basically going 100% to childcare because it's so expensive. And there's, a lot of places you have to pay for kindergarten. Kindergarten isn't free. School doesn't become free until first grade. And there's all these reasons why we need to make sure kids have early childhood education, because that's how you elevate communities. Education is what you do to change systemic poverty. Like, that's one of the biggest things that you can do. And it's also one of the biggest things that you can do to help stop the pay discrepancy between men and women, to help stop the pay discrepancy between white folks and BIPOC folks. So making sure that people can keep working and their kids can get early childhood education is so critical. And it's been a huge barrier for a lot of families. And so what this part of the stimulus package is going to do is give a stipend every month to families that have kids. And it's not all families, it's families that are like the most in need, get the most of it, and then it scales down once you get up. So like my husband and I are going to be getting maybe $150 a month to help, which isn't like a huge amount, but what this will do is decrease childhood poverty in the United States by 50%. This one thing. The sad thing is it expires at the end of the year. So now we have to make sure that we get this into a permanent law. The good thing is, if you think about Social Security, the American Social Security system, that was only supposed to last for a couple of years. And now, there's questions about whether or not it's going to be solvent. But once you give somebody something, it's really difficult to take it away. It's really difficult to take it away. So we're really hoping that this will be the rallying cry, that this will be the clarion call for making sure that we can start to do something to support working families in this country, because there's just been nothing that's been done. And it's been keeping women, particularly women and people of color, in poverty for a long freaking time. So that is the thing that I am the most excited about. Some of the other things that they've talked about are forgiving. We haven't seen action on it yet, but it feels like it's coming soon, is changing or forgiving large chunks of people's student loan debt. There is, I think it's something like 8% of student loan debt holders have more than $100,000 in debt. 68% of student loan holders have more than $50,000 in debt. Like, it's an insane amount of money that Ryan, our generation, faced this more than probably any generation, because we had it compounded with graduating and going into the workforce right at the time of the recession. And when that happened, there used to be like companies would help you pay off parts of your student loans, and then that just went away. And in the recession, like that benefit just was gone. And so you have these people that are trying to start families, trying to establish their lives, just completely held down by tens of thousands of dollars of debt. So seeing that change is going to be really excited when that happens.
So here's my feeling about the things that you just got excited about. Is I was about ready to fall asleep. And okay, so, but look, I understand that it's super important. I get it. I know that it's important. And I also know that Republicans hate these things. And I read a while ago that they were having difficulty, like, arguing against Biden because he's an old white man. And what are you going to argue about? That he's too old? And B, the things that he's doing are really boring and geeky, right? Like arguing about marginal tax rates and the exact amount of a child tax credit is not going to excite very many people. It's not like who exactly is grabbing a pitchfork to fight about these issues, and the answer is no one at all.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Well, I would argue with that women have actually been fighting for these issues for a really long time. It's just never gotten the coverage that it's needed. But I will say that, whereas elected Republicans didn't like this, like the stimulus package passed without a single vote from Republicans in the Senate. However, over 70% of the American people are in support of it. So that is, that right there, I think it shows that there are a lot of Republicans that are in support of this because they see the need in their community. If we look at the way that The opioid crisis has just decimated rural areas. If we look at the way that the exportation of manufacturing jobs has disproportionately impacted rural and developing communities, like these are things that people care about, but it is not a sexy thing to talk about. It does get boring, but when people see the impact that it has on their lives, then they're going to care about it when they're trying to take it away. It's like with Obamacare. It's like with the Affordable Care Act. People were all pissed about it because they thought there was going to be these death panels and other things. But then when they started talking about like, oh no, we're going to take away the pre-existing condition thing, where insurance companies before the Affordable Care Act could disclose you because you have a pre-existing condition. Pregnancy is a pre-existing condition. So rewind 15 years. If I wouldn't have had a kid then because that would have been weird. I would have been way too young. But
well, you're kind of old. You're kind of not young now. How can I say that? You're not as
Ryan,
young.
You call me old.
I didn't say it.
Old.
You're not as young as you think you are. So
I know it's because I still feel like I'm in my mid-20s for some reason half of the time.
Doesn't it feel like last year was the year 2000? Didn't it just happen?
Yes.
Yeah. Dude, I was like, it was just a couple of years ago that you and I were bar hopping during an election party, right?
Yeah, that just happened.
That was like 2 years
for
ago.
Obama.
Right?
The Obama election just happened, right?
Yes! Oh my God, the night of the 2006 elections, I will never forget that night. Oh, wave of blue. It's so fantastic. But you see this thing where people are like kind of hemming and hawing and slightly up in arms about it, and maybe they feel like they need to be outraged because Tucker Carlson is. But then once they get it and they see the way it impacts them and they see the way it's impacting their neighbors, then they start to care about it. Then they start to realize that this is the thing that we need and this is just the decent thing to do. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like when Social Security happened, elder poverty and the poverty of elderly was so horrific before Social Security. It was like, you know, you had poorhouses that existed everywhere, and they were primarily filled with the elderly, and people that weren't able to. It was untenable, and so we did something about it. And now, when you think about childhood poverty and the impacts of that, and the lasting impacts of childhood poverty, if we have the opportunity to change that, to decrease that by 50%, you can't take that away. You just can't. Unless you're like a soulless succubus, you can't do that.
Well, I don't know. There are a number of those around. So.
Yeah.
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 I have too much optimism and hope. That's what the Biden administration gave me back, was my hope.
Well, that's nice. I don't have any more optimism.
Well, you've been living in Brazil, Ryan.
Ah. I have plenty of optimism, but my optimism is for my next meal. Let's get some coxinhas. Let's get some nice Brazilian food, and for my next trip to the beach. That's all of my optimism is there. I have no optimism in politics.
Yeah. Well, I get you. I feel you, brother.
But I do think it's really interesting that there's like the culture war that has taken our attention for the last forever, right? 20 years we've been fighting about stupid bullshit has kind of disappeared in the last few months, hasn't it? Like what are the culture war people arguing about now? And what is it? They don't have anything to argue about.
I think we're back to the tan suit days.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
but it's not even. They can't even argue about tan suit because the tan suit argument worked because Obama was black, and they were really just mad that Obama was black. But they were like, tan suit, ha, yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the things that's really unfortunate, a lot of the outrage that you see is moving to the state level, and so you're getting these just really inhumane pieces of legislation that are being passed against trans kids. So that's a big thing that's happening right now, which is really heartbreaking, or against LGBTQ youth. Restricting women's access to choice has become another big one. We've taken huge steps back across the country on that, where there's like heartbeat bills in some states, and Uh, so it's what you see happening is this like consistent chipping away at progress that has been made over the past 25 years. And it's happening in silent, subtle ways. Um, and in places that, when you hear about it, you're like, oh, of course that's going to happen in Kansas. Of course that's going to happen in Alabama. Um, but we have an opportunity to change that if we just keep paying attention. And so I think that is a risk, because I can tell you that I definitely I'm not really on Facebook anymore because I'm done with the outrage machine of it, and I'm done with the doom scrolling. And I don't feel like I have to be vigilant in the same way that I had to be vigilant a year ago. Uh, so you do have this risk of disengaging, but as somebody that still gets a newspaper delivered to my house on a daily basis, the coverage in there has been raising these points and has been bringing up these issues, which is important because we can't let our guard down just because there's a Democrat in the White House. If anything, this is the moment to really put your foot on the gas, to really see what kind of progress can we make and how can we make sure that we're not doing things that can just be overturned by an executive order in 4 years. How can we make lasting change? How can we change things systemically? How can we address all of the issues that have bubbled up to the surface over this past year while we've been in this pressure cooker of a pandemic?
Ryan is not the best today. Jesus Christ,
what? You haven't talked either. What's your take?
No. But about this, I don't.
You got any hot takes? Give us your hottest hot take, Rodrigo.
No. I can talk about Brazil a little because I barely understand Brazil. Imagine America. Imagine all that's going on in America. I'm trying to figure out and to process everything that's going on in Brazil. So I don't know. It's similar. America seems to be what we hope to be in the future. Like right now, we hope to have our Biden, but our Biden would be someone.
Yeah, no.
Jesus.
He doesn't exist, sadly.
Not really. Not really.
Yeah, how much longer do you guys have Bolsonaro as president? What's a presidential term down there?
2022.
Oh, woof.
Yeah. Great.
I feel like these leaders, just like, did we have to have a pandemic with these guys in charge? Like, come on. Like, couldn't you have just done it at a different time? Fates, come on.
Exactly. Just 4 years. Like, what's time and space to just a pandemic? It's just 4 years. But I think it was supposed to happen. Like, it wasn't, but I don't know. Ryan, please.
Well, yeah. I mean, what the reason that we had a pandemic was because we had these idiots. If there had been competent leadership,
that big, yes.
Yeah, if there had been competent leadership, it would have been like SARS or Ebola or one of these other ones in the last 30 years. It would have happened, and it would have been over in a couple months, and we would have been like, well, it's not such a big deal. Why did we have to kill? Blah 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 blah.
Exactly. When when public health experts do their job correctly, people question why the hell we need public health experts.
Yeah, and that's how it should have been. But instead, we have this problem because half of the world is run by idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we found this was a couple months ago. It was a couple months into the pandemic, or when it had started. We found these pandemic kits that I don't know if we got them from my mom, who somehow ends up with a bunch of stuff, or if we got it from my brother who had been in the military. But what it was this like plastic pack that you open, and there is 2 surgical masks in it, 2 N95 masks, a giant bottle of hand sanitizer, and a thing like a pack of nitrile gloves. And then on the back there was all of these URLs that went to like the global pandemic response team, the one that Obama had funded, and like this is where you go for the most the most current information on a pandemic in the CDC. This is like all these different links. and none of them worked anymore. Like, none of these links worked anymore because when Trump dismantled that, all of that information went away. And I was like, dude, if we had these, like, these things existed because under the Obama administration's plan, under the Obama administration's pandemic response, every American citizen would have gotten one of those kits within like a couple weeks of a pandemic being declared. And then there was all these resource information on the back of it. And I'm like, if only that had still been in place.
Yeah. And it's not even like just Obama, because there's somewhere that I read or saw something where Obama said when he was entering the White House in 2009, one of the briefings that he got from the Bush people, which was like, what is the biggest threat that I have to worry about? And they were like, pandemic.
Yep.
It's pandemic and nothing else. Don't even worry about the other things. They're not going to happen. You're not going to have a nuclear war. That's a old idea. The problem is pandemics. And they were like, here, do these things. And so Obama's plan was actually Bush's plan, which was actually Clinton's plan, which was actually it's not Obama's plan. It's the United States government's plan that's been there forever. And Trump was like, nah, we don't need that.
Need that.
Don't you just love Trump?
uh,
Well, he was fun anyways, right? He was kind of fun. Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty warped definition of fun,
Yeah.
but okay.
It's like fun. I don't know.
It's
What
like
kind of
fun
movie?
in the way that a really bad acid trip is fun.
Yes.
We'll all look back fondly on this time
Yeah,
later.
that's an understatement.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that the next stimulus package, because there's this $1.9 trillion stimulus package that's been passed. My friend and I were joking this morning. We're like, can the next stimulus package, instead of like direct payments, can it come for like therapy vouchers or like vouchers for my antidepressants, please? Because that would be really nice.
Or
'Cause
Twinkies.
Twinkies.
There's like residual trauma that we as a society are going to be facing for years from this.
So what about this next big stimulus bill thing that they're planning? What do you think about this? What's your hope? Idea.
My hope? I mean, okay. So there's some really good things that are in the stimulus package. I have to say, I have been really disappointed in the way that Washington State has used our state and local money. So one of the good things that the stimulus package did was city, local, and state governments were on the verge of collapse in a lot of places because they're not getting like sales tax revenue or other revenues that they were anticipating to get because the economy just stopped. If you look at arts organizations, though, we're kind of screwed. Seattle is known for our music scene. We're known for, Jimi Hendrix and grunge and Nirvana and Stone Temple Pilots. Like, we're known for all of these big things. And the venue scene is the venue scene is Seattle, and the arts scene is Seattle. The museums are Seattle. We are this quirky, flannel-wearing, coffee-drinking, pot smoking motherfuckers that are awesome and creative.
Oh.
But there has been zero money going to the arts and going to the arts and venue scene. So museums like mine that have been closed for the better part of a year, that when we're allowed to reopen are only doing so at like 25 or 40% capacity, have seen just absolute nosedive in our earned revenue, and there is nothing from the state to support us. So you have a lot of museums and cultural places that are at the risk of closing because our patrons can only give so much. The people that are donating can only give so much. Corporations can only give so much. And we're fighting for scraps. Arts Washington had like $50,000 to give out. There was this, there's, $2 million that were given out to small businesses and museums need to apply for that. Not a single nonprofit was given any state support from the last round of state funding. If you go just down the road in Oregon, shout out to Oregon on this, they reserved $50 million just for arts organizations out of their state stimulus money. And they have a population that's like, what, a third of ours? And to see that type of support, to see that type of support for artists that are living and working in our communities, and showing that that is a viable industry is really, it was fantastic to see that, because the arts in Washington State, we provide about 8% of the state's GDP. We provide over 75,000 jobs across the state, and there's no funding for that because we're seen as trivial. But when we're in these times of quarantine and we're in these times of collective trauma, what do people turn to? Oh, what's the Netflix show you're watching? What are the actors that you're watching? What's the museum that has their stuff online? What music are you listening to help you get through this? What creative outlet are you turning to? The arts are what save us. The arts are what remind us of our shared humanity. The arts are what allow us to discuss our shared experiences in a neutral way. And it allows people to open their minds to perspectives that they didn't have before. And it helps to break down barriers in communities and create bridges where they didn't exist before. But apparently that's not worth funding.
I would like to reach out to all the grunge old timers that are still around and tell them, look guys, imagine if this had happened in the grunge era, and then the grunge that never existed, then I would never have this tattoo of Stone Temple Pilots. And this is this is insane. But the same thing happens in Brazil with the culture. People, especially now, especially at the moment, people just, what culture? Why? What do you need? And I understand that in Brazil because there's a bunch of people that don't even have food or any housing or anything at all. So some people just think, no, to hell with culture. We don't need it. But it's crazy.
It's the bread and roses conversation. It's the bread and roses conversation that that's like economics 101 for when I was in college. Of, do you want to, when you talk about supply and demand, when you talk about supporting your people, when you talk about a government's role, do you just supply the bread, or are people worthy of the roses too? And you have to ask yourself what you can prioritize. Like, yes, we need to make sure that people are eating. Yes, we need to make sure that we are supporting historically marginalized communities. Yes, we need to work to end systemic racism and systemic poverty. But these things aren't mutually exclusive. They intertwine and they intersect in so many ways.
They have to.
And it's so important to lift them up, because being an artist should be a viable career option for somebody. I'm definitely guilty of making the joke of, whatever, dad, I just need to focus on my art right now. Like, I make that joke all the time. But art school's there for a reason. Like, people need this. This is a thing that feeds our souls. And especially with everything that we have been through in the past year, there's been a huge and a long time coming and a very important racial reckoning in the United States. And if you look at the Capitol Hill Occupy protest, which happened in Seattle, yes, they shut down city blocks. They got the police department to vacate a precinct. They did all these things. The art that came out of that protest was so fantastic and captured a moment, and captured this feeling and this thing that all of us have been sensing and living with. And I'm just to see that, for people to think that that the art wasn't a part of it, the art has always been there, and it is what fuels this and what brings us together.
But this is something that's been around for a long time. As a Brazilian, I've watched like too many movies in which, for example, I don't remember the exact name, but Mr. Holland. With
Mr. Holland's Opus.
Yes.
It's a Portland movie.
They just cut the funding for art, for music. They always do that, and all the movies I like midway, oh no, they cut the funding. I said, well, why did they do that? Then, so this is something that's been going on for a while, right? People just don't. It's music, it's art. It's just, I don't know, whatever. That's weird.
Yep.
Yeah. So you hope in the next round of stimulus they get some money for the arts? That's your
it would be nice to
hope?
see. Yeah, it would be really nice to see something done at the national level on that. So organizations across the country don't have to be like, bare knuckle boxing it to get $20,000 from the National Endowment of the Arts. That it would just be fantastic. But I do think that too, there, one of the other things that I would like to see is more support for colleges and schools. I think that so they can transition to a more consistently remote system. There's been a big pressure to get kids back in school, which I totally understand that there's a mental health crisis for teenagers. We need to make sure that they are able to see their peers, because kids are really being impacted by this in very serious ways, particularly kids that have like a troubled home life. If you're not able to escape that, it gets really freaking bad. But there's also a big benefit to having remote learning, because it can prepare people for a remote workforce. I have been thinking about this recently, and I don't know how it ties into it, but it would be nice to see, like, if we have this opportunity through the stimulus packages to make these really big monumental changes, like the guaranteed minimum income for families with kids, let's tackle rural poverty in this. And a really great way to do that is a lot of people can work from wherever now. And that is something, like, remote work is something that is being understood as a viable option now, and is no longer just the home office is for slackers. Although I still refuse to wear pants. I do think that we have an opportunity to, like, expand broadband internet out into rural communities, because imagine if you have somebody that is making a software engineer salary and is able to move into a rural community, and then they're able to have their velocity of money from their paycheck support the local diner, support the locally owned grocery store, support the locally owned stores. And then those people, like, it just creates this fantastic velocity of money and supports these areas in a really meaningful way. And so if there's any way that we can foster, and that all starts with getting kids access to computers, getting kids access to STEM education in a more meaningful way in elementary schools, and making sure that there's an infrastructure support so we can continue to take the best parts of what we have learned this last year and work with them moving forward. Like, you don't have to be in any physical location to have a job somewhere. You don't have to be in any physical location to get access to schools. Like, maybe a kid from Kentucky should be able to go to an award-winning high school in Washington State virtually, because they're able to get better education that way. Like, maybe we should support a system like that, so it democratizes access to information, democratizes access to learning, and just elevates everybody, not just the urban centers, not just the business development areas, but it elevates people where they're at and supports communities where they're at. I don't know how you tackle that. It's just what I want to see happen.
Well,
I'm really good with ideas.
Yeah. Not so much on the execution, huh? Big ideas.
I'm relatively good on the execution. It just depends on how much coffee I have in me.
Ah, okay. And you get your coffee from the New World Order? Come on, you live in Seattle. Do you have to go to Starbucks?
Yeah.
Oh, this is just a cup. This is just a cup. Yeah, I didn't actually get this from Starbucks. It's a reusable cup.
You're passing it on.
You already failed.
Yes.
Oh, the caffeination of the oppressor.
And I thought it was decaf.
No, I have a 3-year-old. I need to be on at all times.
Cool. Well, then, just to wrap up, are you feeling optimistic now, or how is your mood at the moment?
I wouldn't say so much optimistic as hopeful. And I think that those are different things, because I think optimism ties to a sense of joy, and that's not necessarily what it is. But I think that hopefulness is something that can still exist with a strong sense of responsibility, and understand the weight of what we're feeling. So we saw something this past week happen here in the United States that I'm gonna cry. I never thought I would see in my lifetime, which was a police officer actually being held accountable for killing a black man. And that happened. The police officer who murdered George Floyd was found guilty on all counts. And that is something that I know that I've always been slightly aware of it, but it's been something that has been so pushed to the forefront of the collective consciousness in our country in this past year, that just the thing is that the violence is not new. It's the camera phones that are new. The violence that communities of color have faced at the hands of, the hands of their white neighbors, at the hands of the police officers. The violence is not new. It's the camera phones, and what else is the fact that people have been at home, and so we have the time to watch this in a different way now, and to sit with it and to feel it in a different way now. And there is this sense that we're not going to stand for it anymore, and we're not going to be okay with it anymore. We're not going to look away anymore. We're going to make sure that there's a light on this at all times until we stop seeing black bodies accumulating. And that we see that I feel like there's this collective notion that Black Lives Matter has to be a thing because Black lives didn't always matter. And Hispanic lives matter because they didn't always matter. Native American lives matter because they didn't always matter. And this understanding of it in a different way is something that I am hopeful for, but also there is this weight of it. Because when you start picking at it and you start thinking about it and you start seeing how can we change things now, how can we make this better moving forward, then you really start to feel this, what have we lost because we didn't give a shit about this until now? What have we lost as a society because this happened for so long and nobody was held accountable? So it's something that's really it's really heavy, but it also gives me a sense of hope that this might be the time that things actually start to get better for people. And this might be the time that it changes. This might be the time that we collectively say enough is enough. But it might not be, in which case we have to, again, just keep our foot on the gas, because I know that there's people, I'm related to some of the people that are like, oh, well, we have a Democrat in the White House now, so it's not a problem anymore. It's the same people that said racism doesn't exist in America anymore because we had a black president. And so just making sure that we stay vigilant in this time, it's a big responsibility, but it also, there's hope in there too, that this is the moment, this is the time.
All right. Well, do you have any questions? I've been asking you questions this whole time. Do you have any questions for me or Rodrigo? Anything you want to know about?
And by just before you ask us questions, just sorry, Brian, today has been particularly pessimistic. I think Brazil has been hitting in us, everybody, so hard lately.
Hey. Yeah, no, I mean, pessimism is a viable thing. It's a viable thing. This is, I think that one of the things that as a society, as people, we need to normalize conversations around pain, and we need to normalize conversations around mental health, and we need to normalize conversations like, I don't know what the standard greeting is in Brazil, but in, the United States, it's like, oh, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm good. Even if you're not, even if you're having a horrible time, that's just what you say. And we need to get away from that. We need to get to moments where it's okay for us to be like, actually, I'm having a shitty day and I'm going to be in a bad mood all day. And that's just where I'm at right now. And we need to be okay with that. And I think that we need to normalize that, because that shows people that you don't have to force yourself into something that is inauthentic because it's better. It is perceived as being better for those that are around you, because then it diminishes what you feel. And if we diminish what people are feeling and we diminish their experiences, then we're all just going to carry collective trauma for a lot longer and not deal with it in a healthy way. I gotta say, the transition from 35 to 36 has been a really good one for me.
Oh yeah.
And moments like this have been like, I'm like, no, you own yourself. You own how you feel. You feel okay with that. And you
Live
just
your
embrace
truth,
it.
you know. Be you.
Yes. Yeah, man. That's what we gotta do. That's what we've gotta do. Otherwise, what the hell is the point? It might also just be that I'm too old to give a fuck anymore.
Yes. Do you feel like this is the best version of you, of your whole life?
Yeah, man. Yes. Also, Mr. and Mrs. Kaufman, I'm sorry for the amount of swearing that I'm doing. I forgot that you were watching.
Swearing it comes out naturally, so it's fine.
Just live your best self. Come on, your best self says fuck a lot.
My best self does say fuck a whole bunch. To the point where my 3-year-old says it sometimes because he thinks it's really funny.
Oh,
like,
well, that's
our
not so
dog
good.
Lagatha. Yeah, our dog Lagatha. There was a while there where he would call her Lagafuck, and then like look at you and give this smile, like, "Can I get away with this? Can I get away with this?" But yeah. So what has it been like? I mean, what is the day-to-day of life with COVID like in Brazil? Like, what is going on with y'all? How has that changed from the last time we talked?
Well, okay, so since the last time we talked, Allie lost her job. She's not working anymore.
No.
And this is fine. Like, the money isn't the problem. The problem is that now, like, there's no activity in the house because nobody leaves to do anything. I teach my classes, and then we watch YouTube videos. Then we go to sleep, and then I teach classes, and we watch YouTube videos, and it's been that for months.
Oof.
Because there's nothing else. Like, at least when she was working, she would go to work and then come back and be like, "Oh man, at work today, there was a customer, and he was bad," and that was like the highlight of every day, you know. but now every day is the same. Every single day is the same. And
You know what the best cure for monotony like that is? Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah.
Every quest can be different.
But yeah, but then I have to, play Dungeons and Dragons. So I have to find somebody to play with or do.
I'm not seeing the problem.
By the way, I was looking for. It's in Portuguese, but I was looking for buying Dungeons and Dragons for Vito. Yeah.
There you go.
So I showed him the cartoon, but it's not quite the same, of course. And then now I'm trying to get him to like it, to get him to know it, and because he likes to create, come up with stories. But I still couldn't find a good role-playing game for a 6-year-old. There's no information. I couldn't find any information on either.
So okay, so I've been thinking we're jumping to the next interview already, but we need to talk to John McCartney because he's a dungeon master. He DMs, and we can ask him all about that. We talk to him.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet John McCartney? Do you know this guy?
Was that the guy that you brought to my house when we ran
No.
out of wine and you came back with no more booze but an additional person?
No, that's another John. That's.
It was the worst beer run ever. Oh my god. Rodrigo,
But-
I never told you the story.
But you don't know what happened. We got the beer and then we drank the beer on the way back.
So fine.
You
It's
never
like-
told me that part of it.
Well, I went
Sounds
to
like
get
Superbad.
the beer, and then I ran into John there, and I had the beer, and I saw John, and I was like, "Oh, let's have a beer," and he was like, "Cool, let's have a safety meeting." And so we did that, and we drank the beer, and then we were like, "Oh, Cole's gonna miss us. We should go back and tell her what happened." And then we forgot about what would happen, but we just showed up and we're like, "Hey, oh yeah, the beer."
You forgot.
Forgot.
Yeah.
Sure.
They said that they didn't make it to the store in time, and so they came back with no additional alcohol but an additional person. And I was like, well, this doesn't do any good, and so I had to bust into my actually like good wine storage
Oh, well.
because it
Then it
was
was
just the cheap stuff that I was given to the canvassers.
Then it was fine. Then everything was fine.
Was that the night that we got the random applause from the parking lot when my CDs fell over? Or was that a different night?
I don't remember. But this other guy, John McCartney, great name, by the way, right? John, yeah. He is also from Seattle. And we're gonna talk to him about dungeon mastering, for sure.
Nice.
But what about you, Rodrigo? What's your day-to-day like?
Well, with Vito, it's never been the same. It's never the same. It's just too much to do. I gotta work, and my kind of work I teach, so I can't just have him around all the time. I have to be in a room with my headphones, so and there's no one to help me, so I gotta be sure that he's hypnotized by TV or something. And every 15 minutes, every 15 minutes, I stop and I check on him, and so that's been the same since last March. Other than that, I haven't left home. People call me paranoid. A lot. I've been called paranoid because I haven't left home. Just very little to do something very necessary, and so it feels weird. When I try to leave home, I see a lot of people not wearing masks. A lot of people not wearing masks. I see, and when I talk to people, when I watched it, I try not to watch the news because the news are crazy. They're just polarizing, and there's still people trying to talk against masks, to explain how they are not effective.
Or how they cause the disease.
How they cause the disease, yes, because it holds up. I don't know. So it's their reasoning, their logics. Mm-hmm. So anti-vaxxers, and it's gotten worse since August. Actually, August was fine.
August was all right.
Yeah.
When we talked to you last, things were in a lull, and like I think around August, we were feeling. Rodrigo probably wasn't. Like he said, he's paranoid, but we were feeling confident enough that we like went out. I think I met up with some friends at a restaurant a few times.
No, right. And I've been called paranoid, but I traveled in
December.
Yeah, November, December. So I'm not. People just because people were just so carefree. People call me paranoid a lot. You know. Just, why wear a mask? Why do this? Why do that? So.
But since for me, since November, or maybe October even, the only time that I've gone anywhere is I go to the store occasionally, but usually we get things delivered. So like if they deliver stuff and I'm like, fuck, they brought the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, well, I guess I'm just having the wrong thing.
Yes.
I mean, I wanted to have a roast with potatoes and carrots, but I guess I'll just have chicken with potatoes and carrot. Okay. Wasn't my plan, but fine. Or I go to the store. And nope, that's the reason that I go out. And
are you able to like enjoy outdoor spaces? Because I don't know.
No.
Obviously,
all the parks are closed. Closed.
They are?
Everything.
Yeah, they're opening on Monday.
Yeah, but they shouldn't.
3,000 people dying still. So
yeah. And Allie goes for a walk every day, and I join her sometimes. Like I'm teaching all day, so I usually can't. But when I have time, I join her. And like on the street when I'm walking, I don't wear a mask. And you guys can be judgmental or not about that. I just don't. I don't wear a mask.
Me too. You're the reason I'm called paranoid.
Yeah, but like then I like there's like a restaurant, right, or a
something
bakery sort of thing, and it's just fucking filled with people, and I'm like afraid to be on the block with this restaurant, even with a mask. I'm like, no, we can't go down this street because they're having a block party at this restaurant. What's going on?
Yeah. Rodrigo, I have to say, there's a podcast that I listen to called My Favorite Murder, which is really fantastic. And it talks about different murders that have happened and like true crime things, and they go over and tell the stories. And some people are like, why do you listen to this? And I'm like, well, as a woman, I kind of view it as self-protection, so that way I don't end up in a dumpster or something. But they have a line on there because when you're a woman existing and you're super vigilant and making sure that you like, you know, walk the drunk girl that you don't know out to her cab to make sure she gets there or whatever, people are like, oh, you're paranoid. And that podcast has taught me this phrase of fuck politeness. Be paranoid. That is how you stay safe. Stay sexy and don't get murdered. Like that's what it is. So let him call you paranoid, man. You got a kid to take care of. You have to be there for your little one. Like, what if something happens to you, and then what's going to happen to the little guy? Like, I get that.
Exactly
I get that in such a real way. And that's why, like, even though my husband and I are vaccinated, we double mask in the grocery store because I don't want my kid to be without a mom. I don't want him to be without us.
Or like now, Rodrigo was telling me before you came on about how tell about the vaccination situation in your family.
So my wife is in she works at a hospital, so she got vaccinated.
Oh, good.
My father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, but I didn't. So I'm the one, and her brother, yeah. So we didn't get vaccinated, but I'm obese. I'm overweight, so I don't feel safe to just go. So I told her, I said, you can go, it's fine. Go see your mom, go see your dad, because now they're going back to their normal lives, and they're supposed to start once you get vaccinated, you're supposed to start feeling a little normal again, a little. Take care, but here in Brazil, it's not. Yeah, so when you feel a little, you just go all the way. You know, there's no, you just go all the way. It's like 0 or 1,000. And people, like today, for example, we had things started to reopen. I think yesterday or today. I don't remember.
Yeah,
things are crowded.
The park was actually open today. We walked past Ibirapuera today, which is like Central Park for São Paulo. We walked near it, and it was like a zoo, man.
Yes.
There was like a line of a crowd of people to get in, and there were all these push carts selling like corn and all these treats outside that were all just jammed together, and like you could see how crowded it was because there was just a cloud of smoke. And if the smoke was accumulating there, then that's where all of the breath was accumulating, right?
Oh.
And it wasn't clearing. It wasn't going anywhere. It was just all together. And there were like tons of people just hanging out there. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on?
Like, I feel myself, like, I'll watch a sitcom from the 90s, like, I'll be watching Friends, and I see them in Central Park,
What are you doing?
and I get, like, a mild anxiety attack of, like, why are you sitting next to each other?
Yes, exactly.
And I gotta say, like, where we're moving, Maple Valley, the town that we're moving to, is, like, just barely over 20,000 people in the town, and the pandemic has really taught me that I'm like, I don't need to be part of an urban center anymore. Like, give me my husband, give me my son, give me my dogs, and then more dogs, and I'm fine. Like, that
space,
is all that I need.
Lots of space between
space.
me and the next person.
My new house is on 1/5 of an acre. We get access to a lake. We're like in the middle of nature, right next to hiking trails, and I am fine with that. I would be totally okay not seeing another person.
I feel the same. But to be honest, I felt like that before. Ryan knows me. That's why I explained that Ryan is pessimistic today, because I'm famous for being pessimistic. Ryan knows me for that. So,
yeah, it's a weird situation when I am more pessimistic than Rodrigo.
Yeah, so that's why I made sure I said it. I recorded that. So
here's a question for you guys. What is the like? I mean, is there any type of like state support or welfare support or anything for businesses that have had to shut down? Ryan, you mentioned that Ali lost her job. Is there any unemployment benefits or anything that's been done in response to the pandemic to help folks during this time, or what does that end of it look like for you guys?
Rodrigo, did the Auxilio, did it end or did they restart it?
It restarted now.
So they have this program, like
they're differently.
Yeah, it's confusing because they restart it, they end it, they change the amount every month. It seems like they're changing this, and it's like almost like a, what is it called? A guaranteed basic income.
Ah.
Okay, but it's, first of all, it's very low. Second of all, it's hard to qualify for it. It's not like a just give everyone money. It's go and do a bunch of bureaucracy to make sure you qualify, and then do the bureaucracy again to stay qualified, and don't forget to file some paperwork or else you'll stop. It's a whole thing.
People that got it last year, they couldn't prove they need it. Now they have to, when they file taxes, they have to pay it back.
Oh gosh.
Yes, and now, so last year it was
$600 a month.
Talking about, yeah, reais, 600 reais. This is about $150, right, a month for 6 months. The last 3 months it was like 70, $80, something like that, 300 reais. And now it's $20, $30, 150 reais a month. That's kind of like so. But the situation here in Brazil is so, not for me, not for Ryan, not for people that are near us, but for around, I don't know, 50, 60 million people.
Desperate.
People that live with
absolutely desperate. And I would say
with less than 100 reais a month.
60 million people is being conservative. It's probably more than that.
Yes.
I bet it was like 60 million people before the pandemic.
Oh,
and
yes.
and now it's 100 million people, probably.
Yeah,
Oh.
not sure. Yeah, I can say, but yeah. Well, if it's so, it's 150. It's crappy, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of people will get by with that. So, this has been, but for companies, for businesses, tax cuts. Yeah, but very little, not much. But
They had a thing, but then it ended. They had a thing last year, and some of my students are business owners, so they're complaining about it ending, where the government was paying companies to not fire people.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh, okay.
And they were also, they have, Brazil is one of the most regulated labor markets in the world. There's so many rules and regulations and things that companies have to do, both to hire and to fire, and all the regulations for employees, which is somewhat nice, but in a crisis, it's not nice. So the government relaxed a lot of these regulations and then paid companies money to. They did a lot of nice things last year, and then it abruptly ended January 1st.
Oh. Because the pandemic magically went away in 2021?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what they thought. What happened?
Because viruses pay attention to calendar years.
Yeah. And so a lot of these businesses were like, having a Band-Aid on to keep employees paid, to let employees, like, for example, it's illegal here for employees to work from home in a lot of cases because it's a violation of the labor law to not have them do a regular work day at the office, because you might be exploiting their labor to have them be at, because it's not in their work contract that they're a home office worker. It's in their contract that they work at the office. So they had to.
Times, it's a great thing.
Yes, it's actually a not. it can be somewhat over regulatory, but I generally think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's better than it is bad.
And when you say it, it's great.
Yeah. But in practice, it has problems. Anyway, so the government said, all right, you don't have to follow a bunch of these rules. If you have an employee, they can do home office and other things. But then January 1st, they were like, we're done with that. And so then a bunch of employees had to start going back to the office. And then the government was like, why are you doing that? They should be doing home office. And the companies were like, yeah, we didn't want to do it. extend the rules. No, but the COVID is over. But it's not. It's a mess.
Oh, woof.
And
Woof.
Nicole, you know the hell you said you were living when in the past administration.
Yeah.
So we feel the same here because I won't say the president, but yes, the president and his team. Like every day is something new. It's not. I'm not even judging him anymore. If it's right or wrong, I am, but I'm not talking about this at the moment. But every day is something new, and it's always something silly, Like, well, a congressman said something about his son because he has 3 sons that are involved in and then he says something back, and it's really something insulting. It's something really insulting, and every weekend he goes to a beach, and he
invites everyone to come have a barbecue.
Like a crowd of 1,000 people around him, and he's not wearing a mask and touching people. Yay! Yeah, he did that in March last year, and he's still doing that. So every day is something new, Some things that are simple, very simple, are supposed to be very simple. And so we still live in that hell.
What was the collective mood like when he got COVID? Because I know when Trump got COVID up here, when he and Melania got it, there was this moment of maybe he'll realize how bad it is. Maybe they'll start to change. Maybe we'll see some policies. And of course that didn't happen, but there was this moment of maybe he'll learn from this. Was there any of that when Sarah got that, or?
No. And Trump, if we compare both, Trump did get better because our president doesn't allow lockdowns to happen, for example.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, he's constantly in court fighting state and local governments to lift lockdown orders. It's like the federal government is playing whack-a-mole with all of the state and local governments. Every time one of them is like, lockdown, the federal government shows up and is like, court order says lift the lockdown. Oh, there's another one. I'll go over here now. And it's the whole country is just like this.
Oh my God.
But there was a new chapter to all that. Our former president Lula, he got back to the game, because some charges have been lifted. So, and he's very, very popular. Still very, very, very popular. People love him. A lot of people still love him. So the day he got out, and the day he was, the day there was a possibility that he could be a candidate again, then one day later, everything changed. Our president started to wear a mask, and he started saying good things about the vaccine, and it was weird. It's the panorama here is something weird.
In fact, it was so fast. The change from Bolsonaro from COVID is a joke. Haha. Vaccine is conspiracy. No, vaccine will turn you into an alligator. He said this, by the way.
He actually said this.
Seriously?
True quote, not a joke.
Wow, who knows? It could. Well, no one knows. Yeah.
Okay,
he
so
actually
the
said-
change from this sort of language to everyone wear a mask and take the vaccine, it's important, was so fast that his son didn't get the memo, right? And was was posting not his son. His son was posting vaccines are good, but all of the other supporters didn't get the memo. So when
But
his
one
son
of his sons did the same.
yeah. So his son was like, vaccines are good. Take the vaccine. And then all of the bots on Twitter, his army of bots that usually supports him, actually attacked Bolsonaro's son because they didn't have time to reprogram the bots.
Yes.
Oh my god. Oh, just imagine what the world would be without social media. I like to have that thought experiment sometimes.
Wouldn't it be nice, though? Wouldn't it be great?
I gotta say, I really feel like getting off of Facebook, like I still have my Facebook page and whatever, but I check it maybe once a month these days. If that, it has done worlds for my mental health to not be on social media anymore. Like the day that I realized that I needed to get, like I still, like I'll do Instagram because it's like pictures of my dogs and that's like kind of, or stuff that I'm cooking, like that's kind of all that I put onto there. Or if I get like a really cute new headband,
Nice.
then I'll like do a picture on Instagram. That's it. But anyway, the day that I knew I had to get off of Facebook, this woman that I used to be in a choir with was posting something about like, oh my gosh, I totally owned this sexist. I just owned him. Like, oh my God, it was so fantastic. And then as I'm reading through her post, I realized she's talking about some random guy on the internet. And I'm like, what? What? You didn't actually own him. And that could have been like a Russian mole. Like,
Yeah.
why are you putting so much energy into this? And then I realized, why do I care that she's putting so much energy into this? I didn't even really like the person when I was in choir with her anyway. Why am I connected to her? Why? Why do I need to do this? So at that point, I shut down my Facebook page for 2 weeks and like did the thing where you can like temporarily remove your profile. And I did it for a full 2 weeks. And it was like going through withdrawals because I would catch myself being like, what's on my nope? What's on my nope? But after I broke that habit, it's just been so nice. Like it's gone back to, for me, the internet exists for funny animal videos and recipes. And that's kind of it. And it's fantastic. And it's like I feel like one of the best things that I've done for myself ever. Although I do still do TikTok, but it's just mainly because my son and I watch animal videos together on TikTok, which is really fun. And I've discovered the amount of weird pets that people have, and it makes me very excited.
I like animal videos too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but social media is, especially Twitter. Twitter is insane. Twitter is insane.
It's just a whole other
Universe.
yeah, like we've created this alternate reality. And I get the good that it's supposed to have done in some areas, but I just think of the amount of harm that's been caused by social media, by Twitter, by misinformation that is spread on it, the body image issues of kids. Like there's just so many negative things that if you look at it in terms of like a cost benefit analysis, I don't see a world in which the benefits of it outweigh the costs and what we have sacrificed because of this. I don't know. I just think like if I could go back to when I was in college, because I got Facebook. Oh, I think it was my sophomore or junior year of college. It was like when it first started going out to like we were one of the first 15 schools outside of Harvard that had it. And I was like, if I had just at that point said, no, this is stupid, and not jumped on the bandwagon, like how different would it be? If more of us had done that, if there hadn't been this hunger for it, this FOMO risk, this like need to put, I'm going to have biscuits and gravy. And then I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Like this need to put everything about ourselves out there. Like how different would the world be?
Yeah, but at that point, it was actually pretty innocent. At that point, it was just like biscuits and gravy. Look at my cat. I'm going to do. It's just dumb. For like 5 years, it was so innocent and stupid. It was only in like 2010, 2011 that it really started to turn into something evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Evil is the word.
Yeah. It's and it's this life of its own now that I really like. So we don't put pictures of my son on social media. Like Edward's picture has never been on Facebook or on Instagram or any of that, because to me, I was like, I want him to be able to create his own identity. Um, and also, I know that kids are horrible, and I didn't want like a cute little picture that I love of him, like, just being a bouncing little baby boy in his pink jacket or something, because it's his favorite color to wear. I don't want that to be something that causes him pain later in life because somebody sees it and then wants to make fun of him because of it or whatever. And I just feel like I need to protect him as much as I can, and not allowing him to be recognized by AI, I think, is a big thing. There was this thing on NPR that was saying something like 70% of children under the age of 2 are recognizable by AI because their social media presence, and that's terrifying. Yeah.
Did you get to watch Parks and Recreation?
I have watched parts of it, yes.
There's an episode where Ron Swanson, he asks, "Hey, bro, how did people know my address? My address? They sent me a letter in," and she said, "Well, you're surprised by that. Just type your name on Google," and so he does it, and then he just takes the computer and throws it in the trash. Jesus Christ, not anymore.
Yes.
He keeps his money. He buries his money. He doesn't use a bank or.
It's amazing that like when Parks and Rec came out, Ron Swanson was written to be kind of a weirdo, right?
Yeah.
But the more time goes on, the more relatable he becomes, and I think eventually he's gonna be like the normal guy.
Yes.
And everybody else in the show is gonna be weird.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I can say Nathan doesn't have any social media. Nathan's never had any social media, and there's times that I make fun of him for being out of touch with pop culture because of it. But I also think like there's something about that that's so freeing. There's something about that that's so fantastic.
He's out there living life.
Yeah, and it's like when it's like this mental shift that happened after I kind of disengaged from Facebook. Of I'm no longer worried about how can I phrase this experience in a way that it will get the most likes. Like I just realized the way in which it made me view the world around me was bizarre, to like realize that that's how I had been morphed, and then to be able to like break free of that. There was something about it that was really liberating. But also like, I had an analog childhood. Social media wasn't a thing when I was a kid. I would love to have my son have that same background, because we have to have a period of making mistakes when we're a kid, and they shouldn't come back to haunt you later on, because you need to be able to learn from mistakes. But I just, it's really nice to not be on Facebook anymore, I guess is what I'm saying. Maybe that's where all the positive change is about, like, live your truth, be yourself. Maybe that's why it's, that's why it's come in this moment, is because I finally disengaged from.
You're living your truth and not the algorithm's truth.
Yes.
Yes.
Beautiful. Well, then I think that's a good place to stop. And we can thank everybody on Facebook for watching. And also,
sorry, Mr. Zuckerberg.
and
didn't mean it.
And also Twitter. What a wonderful platform. Thank you also everyone on Twitter for watching. And also YouTube. Man, YouTube, all of your comments just bring joy to my soul.
Yes.
And finally, also Twitch. Thank you, people on Twitch. You don't have comments, so you're actually fine. I like you. Only live. Twitch is only live, and so I feel like it's better in some ways.
I'd just like to say hello to one of my friends that's watching. He's been a little down lately, and Renato. Okay, I just want you to know, Renato, that you matter. Be strong. Okay, you're a good man. We like you. Okay? We love you, Renato.
This heart's for you.
Yeah, hearts, Renato.
Yes. Okay. Cool. And Thanks, Nicole, for coming on. I just know I said we'd be an hour, but I kind of realized that you had a lot to say, and you needed to say it very quickly. So you kind of just were like blah for an hour, and then like the second hour was a really like enjoyable drifting conversation. But that first hour, you were like, man, I got some things to say about politics. So I'm gonna say them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like you've ever known me to be opinionated about anything in the past. So.
What? No, I'm talking about.
This has been fantastic. I really appreciate being a recurring guest. Thank you for making my Saturday Night Live dreams come true. I hope the world now sees exactly how funny I am, and then I'll get the actual SNL gig.
Yes.
So this is just a like a letter to you. So if you play a song, you can be both a guest writer and a musical guest.
Exactly.
I know Ryan's favorite song that I do. God damn you, Bremerton. God damn you, Bremerton. You remember that one, right?
Yeah. Good. Very nice.
Strong feelings about the town of Bremerton.
Very good. I can see it.
Guys, this has been fantastic.
I can see it now. Live from New York is Nicole singing God Damn You, Bremerton. And everyone will love it. All right.
Yeah, sorry. I was about to go off on another tangent. I could keep you guys all night. This has been fantastic. I would love to come back again at some point so we can talk more politics and talk more about masks and parks and the evils of social media as we stream on social media.
And the philosophy of being.
The philosophy of being, exactly. Nice light subjects.
Yeah. Cool. So thanks for coming, and we will see you again soon, I hope. Sooner rather than later. But until then, stay safe, okay? And tell Nathan hi. Give your kid a hug. And everybody else out there watching, Hanato said hello. Rodrigo, did you see?
No, I didn't, but I'll check it.
Everybody else, thanks for watching, and see you all next week. And you guys stay safe too. All right. See you later. Adios.
Bye.